In the last year's monetary dialogue, President Lagarde noted that the European Central Bank does not internally validate Eurostat's inflation data, even though we have concerns about possible underestimation over long time horizons. For example, when comparing compounded annual rates to cumulative price changes since 2004. So she suggested that the responsibility for data is entirely with Eurostat. But given that accurate inflation measurements play a very crucial role in decisions on monetary policy, that raises the question, and I want to ask, could you clarify what independent safeguards or audit mechanisms are in place to detect and correct any potential systematic biases in the inflation data reported by Eurostat? And have there ever been concerns about conflicts of interest or structural incentives within Eurostat or between institutions that could compromise the independence or accuracy of this data?
Thank you very much. First of all, thank you, because this is a pet subject for me, inflation and its measurement. First of all, I would like to make it clear that these are all estimates, basically. I mean, there's nothing like, something that is cast in stone. Having said that, let me make it clear, and I'm not speaking on behalf of Eurostat here. Whilst Eurostat is in the business of supervising, basically, or engaging with the national statistical institutions on methodology, on quality issues, and so on and so forth, it is not Eurostat who is actually producing national, basically, inflation data. It is the national statistical institutions who do that. Of course, they collaborate very closely and cooperate very closely with Eurostat on methodology, on quality issues, and so on. I mean, there are myriad issues that are continuously being discussed in order to produce the best estimate that could be had in that regard. However, having said that, basically, first of all, I'm not aware of any undue influence on the production process of these statistics. If I would be aware, I would be the first to speak out. I don't shy away from speaking out, basically. I do discuss regularly with Eurostat. The DG of Eurostat is here, and she can vouch for that. I speak to them regularly, even before us having assumed the chairmanship of ESCAP. Basically, I spent long years in the EFC, and I chaired the EFC subcommittee on statistics, and I did used to relay to Eurostat any concerns that or any issues that used to be raised, even within fora like ECOFIN or the Eurogroup, having to do with statistics, because that is of course my subject, and I think it's extremely important that people would be aware, basically, of such concerns. So, whilst I would say no, I'm not aware of any such matters. However, I am aware that there are strenuous efforts, extensive efforts, in order to continuously improve the estimation of inflation. Having said that, I don't think that we can ever arrive at a situation whereby we would always have the best estimate, but we can never say that we've got it exactly right. There's nothing like that when it comes to statistics. I'm also aware that there is a cooperation agreement between Eurostat and the ECB, and this cooperation agreement is alive and kicking and is being implemented essentially. So I think that any concerns, any issues ought to be discussed there. But if we could contribute as a SCAP, I would be the first one to open my hands basically and lend a hand, and in assisting in whatever would be required. I mean, by way of conclusion, basically, because I know the chair had earlier asked me to conclude, I was saying basically that SGAP is here and SGAP wants to deliver. Basically, we are here at the service of the European statistical system. And I work, there are already present, preparations for example, the next, the discussions on the next financial perspectives. I basically make a plea, I make a case for the right resources to be given to the statistical institutions, both at a national level and at a European level. Why is that? Because, the implications of not having the right resources, and let me put it this way, in the grand scheme of things, when you look at the amount of money, the huge budgets that are available both at a national level and at a European level, what is given to statistics or any increases to statistics are by definition going to be extremely marginal. So they won't break any camel's back. Let me put it this way. But the impact of some additional resource allocations will go a long way to address the issues that have been raised by yourselves, esteemed members of this committee, basically. It does take some resources. It does take research. It does take loads of training. It does take lots and lots of time and effort, investment in order to develop the right methodologies, and the methodologies that would capture the dynamics of the situation, the socio-economic, basically environment in which we are all operating. So, esteemed members of this committee, I augur that you will make a case for these small increases to the statistical institutions, basically, because that investment will pay off. Unless you invest in the system, basically that system might become irrelevant, as time goes by. Why? Because the world out there is changing, and unless you keep up, we all talk about about the revolution that we are witnessing, Madam Chair, in AI. Basically, sooner rather than later, we shall be seeing statistics being generated using AI models. Now, AI models do work and do produce lots of wonderful things. However, basically, I'm sure that you would have experimented, most of you, with things like ChatGPT, and you ask some silly questions, and sometimes you do get silly answers. Sometimes you do get things which do not sound right, do not look right. So even in the statistical world, basically, we have to keep abreast, we have to have a solid governance framework in order to regulate, these new developments. Eurostat must invest in order to keep ahead of the game. The national statistical institutions must invest to be ahead of the game. We at SGAP, basically, I said we are here on, we are publicly spirited volunteers, basically. We believe in this, so we're devoting some time and effort in order to deliver on the remit we've been assigned. And it's an honor for us, basically, to be able to. So even when I make a small case for some little resources, basically, in order to, we want to improve our act, Madam Chair. Esteemed members of the committee, we want to be right in what we're doing. We want to be ahead of the game. We want to be able to basically deliver recommendations which are ripe, which are well researched, which are well thought through. We don't want to come up with generic recommendations, which then, when it comes to their implementation, you find a brick wall, basically, because they wouldn't have been, well researched, well thought out. So this is the case I'm making. A small investment which will deliver results. Thank you.